Welcome again to the Transform Your Birth podcast. And with me today is lovely Caitlin, who has a gorgeous baby in her arms, little Patricia, who is 10 weeks old. So she's not long out of the labour room. Hello, Caitlin. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Tracy.
All right. So you were pregnant with little Patricia. How are you feeling about the idea of giving birth?
I was nervous about giving birth because I had heard, stories of friends and family, and they just hadn't gone according to how people wanted their births. And it sounded like, oh, people are going overdue and then they're getting induced and then they're having a really long labor and then they're just ending up with a cesarean. And so it really made me feel nervous for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just feeling yeah, scared.
It's that
Yeah.
realization that this is obviously something we can't control. And that can be very unnerving for us modern humans who love to be in control, walking into the wild side. So, what sort of preparation then did you do?
So I did yoga. I did a lot of prenatal yoga.
Hmm.
And during that, there was a great instructor who kind of said, do some mindful breathing. And so my partner and I started doing mindful breathing and affirmations together.
Yeah.
Um, And then I also did your course as well, the Transform Your Birth
Mhm.
course, and that was good. And then I also did the hospital had a course, so I did
Okay.
their full day course as well. Um, and I listened to one podcast, not your podcast, a different one, and it made me realize there was just so many things I didn't know about birth.
Yeah.
So I stopped listening to podcasts or reading about other people's experiences because I just
Yeah.
didn't want to know. Like, there's too many options, you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
figure out all of the options. So, yeah, I didn't do any kind of looking into
Mm.
other people's stories.
And that can be helpful because your mind doesn't know what to do with all that information. And then it can create this internal pressure that you feel like you've got to be on top of it or you've got to know everything. And I often, say to people, you don't actually need to know all the different things and ways we can manage birth. You need to know that your carers know that.
Hmm.
Your job is to know what you can do to make a difference. So when you did the preparation, I think yoga is a great thing to do during pregnancy because it really can help release tension in the body and particularly if it's being led by a childbirth educator as well, can just start to give you a sense of this is how I can deal with it. What were some of the things you learned in your prep that really, to you, made the difference, big difference, particularly on the day?
Well, the yoga teacher was really great because she made us do wall sits for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, baby. Shh, shh, shh. Um, And then she would introduce different things that you can use during labor to, help manage pain.
Yeah.
And so it was different things like gentle touch and words of affirmation. And one of the things she introduced was a spiky ball.
Uh-huh.
And that ended up being the thing in my labor that
Really?
really made all the difference. I just clung to that spiky ball like nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really great. She was just a really great educator in that sense. And she helped us connect to the other women there. So we kind of had a shared experience. But
Mm.
yeah, a lot of her emphasis was also on that kind of psyche and the mother psyche
Mm.
to, feel like you're telling yourself that you can do it instead of
Yeah.
going into it, telling yourself that you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That shift in mindset as well. Did you do some of the practices?
We did practices. The only practice that we didn't do, Tracy, was the preparing for a cesarean.
Ah,
And in the end, and I don't know why, but I think that I felt like we should do it like close to the time, or I don't know, I didn't want to do it too early. So we did everything else and we did it every day and except for just that one,
yeah.
which in the end was lucky because that didn't happen for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were doing the practices and then also mindful breathing and then our
Mhm.
affirmations. My partner and I wrote the affirmations together and would say them together every night, and
Mm.
that was really nice. Yeah.
And what did you notice when you did that sort of preparation with the practices, obviously from yoga and also the Transform Your Birth class? How did that change the way you were thinking and feeling as you got closer?
It helped me to access this calm part of myself. That was the most, you know, that was just like the biggest realization for myself, is that I could really access this calm part.
Mm,
Uh, yeah. And I think even now, because now I haven't been doing the practices because I gave birth, and I can feel my anxiety creeping up and up and up. And so I need to find some sort of other kind of meditation and daily mindfulness to do, because the practices really, really did help me just get to that calm place
mm,
quicker. And
mm.
I had never described myself as, a calm person. I'm quite an anxious person. So
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing the way it changed.
Mm. Ah, yeah, there you go. And I think the point Caitlin's made is really important because as modern women, we're very overstimulated. And so our nervous systems tend to be more on hyper alert, hyperactivity, doing and being and all these different demands of us that we allow demands to take of us. Then doing some type of a practice to down-regulate that stress response and finding that inner calm can be so, so helpful wherever you find yourself in birth, because we don't know what's going to happen on the day. And I think that just the breath is the bridge to that, just using the breathing and that deep relaxation practice, finding that inner calm, whatever happens is going to be the best kind of baseline that you can offer. It's the best physiological response that you can offer, whatever situation you find yourself in. So I love that you discovered that and you really committed to those practices. Now, Caitlin, you were a little bit concerned about your mental health through this. Do you want to just talk us through what sort of or what scaffolding you surrounded yourself with in order to make sure you were well supported? Because I think you were very wise to do what you did.
Yes. So yeah, early in, I knew that I was, a high risk person for anxiety and depression, prenatally and postnatally, just because I've had
Mm.
that in the past. And then in my first trimester, I had a very difficult family situation. So I, was falling back into that depression.
Mm.
And when I went to my first midwife appointment, they did the screening for prenatal depression, and I scored very high risk for that. And so at that appointment, they talked to me about getting into a program with a midwife who specializes in mental health
Wow.
and helps women on their journey. And so she was called a PEP midwife. I don't know what PEP stands for though, sorry, but I saw her throughout my pregnancy. And
Mm.
she was really great because she really connected me to other services as well. I got connected in with something called the Perinatal Wellbeing Center here.
Yeah.
And they were great. They were giving me, fortnightly calls throughout my whole pregnancy.
Wow.
My midwife also referred me to a psychiatrist and a psychologist that were connected to the hospital.
Hmm.
And that was more because I have a family history of postpartum psychosis. And so
Yeah.
they just wanted to make sure that I was, supported and, well cared for. And so that was really great.
Mm.
Luckily, I have a fantastic GP who sees my whole family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she knew all my sisters and she knows my mom and she knew the whole story. So yeah, she was really great. And I think because I had depression and anxiety in the past, I knew the warning signs. And
Mm.
at one point in my first trimester, I said to my partner, I just feel like I'm getting sucked into a black hole. And he said, I won't let you. And I think with him there to help me and access all the services and really advocate for myself,
Yeah.
um, it really made all the difference. So yeah, it
Oh.
was it was great to have so much support. And I think that, the mental health system in Australia does sometimes get a bit of a bad rap, but
Mm.
yeah, I really was well supported through my pregnancy, which I'm very, 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 very grateful for.
Yeah. Oh, I love to hear that. The power of those types of professionals and feeling like, okay, we've got you, and setting that up beforehand, being really proactive in that rather than crossing your fingers and hope it doesn't happen, I think are the perfect conditions to actually help you head it off at the gate because you just know that you're supported. And that just sounds fabulous. Well done, Canberra Hospital. It's great, great to hear. So, coming up to the labour, you chose to be induced. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, yes. So my blood pressure towards the end of my pregnancy was really all over the place, and I was
Mhm.
very swollen. My face and my hands and my feet were really, really swollen.
Right.
And I didn't have preeclampsia. Um, and they would, but they wanted to just keep an eye on it. And so I was going to my midwife appointment and then also going in to the hospital to have my blood pressure checked and that kind of thing. And so when I was 39 weeks, I went in to do that. And that was when the doctor talked to me about induction. And he did a vaginal exam then. But he said, you're not even close, you know. Um, and so I said, okay, we won't book it in now, but we booked in a window to do it.
Yeah.
And then the following Thursday, when I was 40 weeks, we went back in for the blood pressure. Um, and that's when we decided, okay, let's proceed with the induction. And I had really, taken your advice in trying to um, not be so fixated on the due date.
Yeah.
Like I asked my friends and my family not to make a big deal about the due date and not to text me on my due date and
Mm.
that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, so I think I was a bit past it by then. I must have been, yeah, 40 and a bit weeks. Um, yeah, and so we decided to be induced just because of the blood pressure and the Patricia wasn't moving around as much as usual.
Yeah.
So there was a few things that just we thought, no, let's get this started.
Mm. So tell us, how did it unfold?
Yeah, the doctor we saw was really great, I think, and he said, look, if you go forward with the induction, you're going to be in hospital for quite a while. But one of the things I had actually organized with the psychiatrist was to have a bit of a longer stay,
Mm.
just to make sure that I was okay after birth, regardless of how the birth went.
Yeah.
And so we kind of already knew that we would be there for a while. And so that was fine. And the thing that he said was if you treat it like home, it's home. And if you treat it like prison, it's prison. And so Mitchell went home and he got some of our home cooked meals and brought them, to the hospital. And we started with the cervical tape.
Yeah.
And when the midwife put the cervical tape in, she said, "Oh, you are 1 centimeter dilated." And so I thought, okay, we're on the road. um, and then we just went for walks and up and down stairs and bouncing on the ball. And yeah, it was just that afternoon. That's all that we kind of did.
Hmm.
And then 12 hours later, around 3:30 in the morning, they did another vaginal exam just to see, because that was kind of the process, I think.
Yeah.
And the tape had slipped out a little bit. And the midwife said, "Oh, you're 1.5 centimeters dilated." And she asked me, "Are you disappointed?" And I could tell that she kind of caught herself in the moment, but it was already out. And I just said, "No, I'm not disappointed. There's something's happening. Like my body's going. So we're just waiting now."
Were you
Uh,
getting sensations at that point?
I was, but it was very mild.
Hmm.
And so I was very kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
calm. And it was nothing more than I had been having. I'd been having, Braxton Hicks and that kind of thing. So
Mm.
it wasn't anything more than that. And then 12 hours later again, they did another check and the tape had disappeared. So they don't know, I don't know to this day where that tape went.
Lost into the ether. Nice.
And that's the risk with the tape. They did say sometimes, the doctor said sometimes he'll walk into a room and the tape will just be on the floor. And he's like, well, that's fine, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, so not sure where the tape went. But after that, we decided to go um, to the balloon. Um, and by then I was about 2 centimeters dilated.
Mhm.
And I was quite nervous for the balloon, and the reason was because I that was the one podcast that I had listened to. The
Okay.
woman had had a balloon and she'd had a, not great experience, and so I was really frightened.
Mm.
Um, but they put the balloon in, and it was all fine. It was great having my partner there, and I had a student midwife who was with me for all of the appointments, and she's so lovely. She would come in even for that kind of, and
Yeah.
she was there when the balloon was put in, and that was really nice just to have a familiar and friendly face and to
Mm.
to be there with me, which was good. And
Well, I
then
just come in there. One of the things that I love about how you're describing this, because that's two lots of 12 hours. Is that what you're saying?
yes, yeah,
And one of the things that can happen mentally is we get into this idea of, okay, I'm being induced, I'll have the baby within 24 hours. And we get very caught up in the time. And, you know, you were having very mild sensations. So you were still able to talk and interact and be. And to not see that phase as a disappointment or as something that's not working, because this is where the mind goes. We can start to assume, oh, 1 centimeter to 1.5, it mustn't be working. And I love the way you're describing this, Caitlin, because it's just this and another 12 hours where, you enjoy yourselves, you talk, you chat, you go for walks, you rock on the ball, and really enjoy that part. And don't get too caught up in once you start the process, it's got to be a linear I should be dilating at this point and why isn't it working? But to just allow things to happen in their own time and in their own way. And even your carers with the tape to try and soften and your cervix, ripen your cervix. That's another word we use, which is a good word for it. And then the balloon to try and open up that doorway without even going down the path of breaking waters and Sinto at that point. Like it's like there was no hurry for that to happen. So I just love the way that, you've been able to pace yourself through those different phases. And without that pressure, then we've created better conditions for that mother to naturally and spontaneously start to kick labor off when it's ready with that extra bit of support. But I'm curious to see how it unfolded from there.
the thing about the induction was that I think a week before I had read an email that you had sent about induction.
Mm,
I'd said, try not to focus on due dates, but if you do have to be induced, just say, welcome. I think
yeah.
in the email it said, hello, you beautiful thing. And that was in my mind because
Mm,
I was just letting this, process help my body,
yeah.
um,
Nice.
and do all the work, I suppose.
Mm. Good mindset. It's welcome anything into it. Once you make the decision, step fully into the decision. Anything that comes your way, you just say, welcome, thank you for helping me to get my baby here safely. I'm very grateful. And have a mindset rather than, oh, I don't want to be induced, I don't want to be induced, I don't want to be induced. Oh, I didn't want to do this. Oh. And then of course, you've just set up a whole different trajectory of experience. The body responds to the words and images you give it. So choose wisely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, yes, so then the balloon was in, and at about 2:30 in the morning, I went to the bathroom, and as I was walking over to the sink to wash my hands, the balloon fell out.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And so yeah, kind of waddled out of the bathroom because the balloon's still taped to my leg, and called the midwife in, and they said, okay, we will take you up to the birth suite now, and we'll break your waters there. And so we did. We went for the walk up to the birth suite, and they broke my waters. They did, and I think that was around the time that they started the syntocin, the drip, the synthetic oxytocin. Um, and from that point, it was like it was on. I
Mm.
had been having contractions like very kind of mildly, but it was like it went from 0 to 100
Wow.
at pretty much as soon as they started the drip. And it hasn't been until after labor that I've realized that I could have, you know,
Ask them
it
to back it off.
yeah,
Yeah.
and stop. So, but in a way, I don't know. I don't know if maybe they knew that I was on the way and that
Mm.
this would help. Um, but there was meconium in the waters as well. And
Uh,
so I think that they, didn't want to slow labor down at all. And Patricia was moving around a lot. And so it was hard for them to get a steady heartbeat on her. They
right.
ended up putting a clip on her head, which was actually uh, good in the end because it meant just less kind of straps around my stomach. And
Mm.
um, I had so much waters, they just kind of kept coming. I think I changed my underwear twice, and then after that, I was like, no, we just have to just be naked because this is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
And again, I was on the ball. I was just moving, like I was going to the bathroom, and Mitchell, my partner, was giving me sips of water and reminding me to go to the toilet, and I was on all fours on the ground, and then I was standing up and I was walking around, and yeah, it was a lot of movement.
Mm.
And then yeah, and it was kind of funny with the drip, because it kind of Mitchell had to follow me around with the drip, but it was all fine. At one point, I think I did say to the midwife, "Oh, I just feel like I need a break," and
Yeah.
she kind of said, "Oh, you'll have a break at the end," and I was like, "Okay."
Can
But
I ask at that point,
yeah.
Caitlin, what you were doing with your mind? Because it can be a lot to go from zero right up the Richter scale, which is what syntocin, which is artificial oxytocin, can do. And that can be a lot for the mind and the body to catch up on. How did you deal with that mentally? What were you doing?
Yeah, it was interesting because there was times when I was thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this. But it was like because I had done all that mindfulness practice, I could catch myself in those moments.
Yeah.
And I didn't let those thoughts run away, and I would
Mm.
stop and
Nice.
and then I would say out loud, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And Mitchell said afterwards that I kept saying that, and it was because I was, fighting this urge in myself to, believe that I couldn't when
Mm.
really I could.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, I think the yoga had helped me. One of the things the yoga teacher did was different noises. We practiced different
Mm.
noises. And when I was getting into those high pitched kind of, really fighting against my body, I remembered she said, try to keep the noises low,
Mm.
work with your contractions. And I remembered that. And so that's what I was doing. I was focusing on even the sounds that were coming out of my mouth,
Yeah.
and make sure they were low and long and, you know, going with myself. And
Mm.
um, yeah, just trying to not keep myself really tense. I think my partner and I did perineal massage, and I think that helped as well, because I used, the labor tools like the spiky ball and the diffuser and music to, get into the same headspace that I would be when I was in labor. And so I think that all of that practice really did
Yeah.
help me in those moments. I had a TENS machine as well, and we used that for a bit, but then I found the wires to be irritating.
Yeah.
So we took that off, and then they did give me gas and air as well. Um, and
How did
that
that go?
I thought of you.
I'm always curious about the gas. Yeah, yeah,
Because it was very difficult because I had done so much practice on
yeah,
breathing through my nose
yeah.
and to all of a sudden have to breathe in and out of my mouth was very, very tricky. And I don't think it was any kind of pain relief. It was more just a distraction for my mind because all of a
Mhm.
sudden I was breathing in and out of my mouth. Yeah, so I don't know. And so we did that for a bit. But then when we got up to the pushing, I was kind of asking for the gas and air, and the midwife said, no, no air. And I think it's because you have to do it through in and out of your mouth. It means that you can't. She was
Yeah.
asking me to do three big pushes for every contraction. And I wasn't able to do that if I was breathing continuously out
Mm.
of my mouth. So that was when, my partner got the spiky ball. And I was worried because we had all of these tools, we had the comb and we had the
Mm.
diffuser and we had the music, and he kept on kind of offering me different tools. And I was saying, no, we don't know how long we'll be here for. So we need to save things for later. And so we didn't even use, half of the things that we had brought to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because it ended up just that Syntocin was like really,
What is happening?
yeah, got it happening for sure. Yeah, and then it got to the point where I felt like I couldn't not push. I was like, this is like, I have to push. And it was, they were telling me, just, can you just not so we can check how far along you are dilated? And even when they were saying, just don't, we'll just come and check, I was feeling like I had to push then. And then when they checked again, I was fully dilated and, my cervix had shortened right
Mm.
up. So they said, no, it's okay. You're ready to push. And by that point, I was back on the bed, but I was on all fours, kind of leaning on the back of the bed so
Hmm.
that between contractions, I could rest my head and have a little, rest. But my contractions were never as long as a minute. Like they were
Right.
quick, but they weren't very long. And it was all in my back, even though Patricia was in the right position in terms of not being posterior.
Yeah.
Um, I could only feel it in my back. Yeah. And then the reason, I said 100 cheerleaders was because when I was pushing, I felt like there was 100 cheerleaders in there. And because she had meconium in the waters, there were two baby doctors there to
Yeah.
make sure she was okay when she was born.
Hmm.
And then my student midwife and my partner, and I don't know who else was in the room, but it felt like so many people just cheering and saying, go, go, go. And when I reflect on my whole pregnancy and the birth, I also include all of those other people who I mentioned,
Yeah.
the psychologists and the psychiatrists and everyone who helped me get to
Mm.
that moment. And so yeah, then I started pushing at 10 and then she was here by 10:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's just lovely. Tell us what it was like when you met her.
Um, it was so I had kind of been, worried that I wouldn't feel like, people say you just feel like this extreme love and connection. And it wasn't that, but I remember when they put her on my chest, I had never felt so proud of myself.
No.
And I just was like, oh my gosh, I just did that. It was amazing. And I just looked at her face, and all I wanted to know was, is she okay?
Mm.
Because even though I knew that, meconium can mean nothing, I also knew that it means that the baby might be distressed and they could ingest some. And um, yeah, so when they cut the cord and my partner cut the cord and they kind of took her over to the table for the doctors to have a look at her, the way they have it set up is really good because you can still see the baby and you can still see the doctors. But I just couldn't wait to get her back in my arms. And they were so generous and kind. They, just let us. We stayed in the birth suite for a few hours after, and I suppose it must just not have been a busy day. But it was really lovely to just kind of have her on my
Mm.
chest, and all of a sudden it was just calm in the room, and I kind of could look around and realize, oh, this is where we are, because I think I had just um it was just in that moment I was just in my body, and I was just, on my way to meeting the baby. So yeah.
Wow. I love, love, love to hear stories of women when they're well supported and you had the whole shebang.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
then
you were in the public system, and people often worry about the public system because it can get very busy and they can be under-resourced, but they do tend to be able to handle complexities and, add things like mental health support and all the different things that different women might need. And you really made the most of that and set yourself on a really great path of being able to manage whatever came your way. What did you learn about yourself, Caitlin?
I feel like, yeah, I learned that I can be calm, and I can access this really calm part of myself. And I think I yeah, like I learned that I can advocate for myself, and I can ask for what I need.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a really empowering experience, but I knew that I couldn't do it without all the people who helped me get there.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. It's
Mm.
not until we're surrounded by the people that make us feel safe, loved, and supported that we can let go enough to do what our job is. If you're worried about the people around you and whether they're coping or not, or your partner's in the corner freaking out, all of that can change a labour. So you really had those beautiful conditions of support, and even having, doctors in whilst, we don't want too many people in the birthing space, but just knowing that if that meconium was more than harmless, that you had that backup and that support to help baby if she needed it. And thankfully she didn't. Was there any issues with the placenta? How did that part of the birth go?
It was all fine. Yeah.
Mm.
My student midwife just helped me with that. And it came out. We have photos of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, the midwife who was there, Liz was her name. My student was Sarah, but Liz was really keen to show us, and she let me cut part of the cord to see what it was like. And
yeah.
yeah, they just I didn't keep my placenta, but I had thought about that a lot before giving birth, and I just thought, I want to just let go and just say,
Mm,
thank you for helping me. Thank you for keeping my baby, safe and fed during my pregnancy. But I wanted to feel like I could move on and let go
yeah.
of pregnancy. So that was
Nice.
my decision in the end. But um, yeah, it was really, really interesting, and really great to see how much the midwives loved that part of it as well.
Yeah.
They almost thought the placenta was better than the baby. um,
Yeah.
not quite. Yeah.
It's a marvelous thing, the placenta and what it does and how it's been the life support system for your baby. And you never see placentas born on TV. You only ever see the baby born, and they miss out on a rather vital part of the birth because it's the part of the birth that we want to make sure happens in as straightforward way as possible and it's fully retained so no parts have been left behind. And so it's a very important part of the birth.
Mm.
One of the things I like to share with my people in my classes is to think about what you want to do with your placenta. The Aboriginal women on this great land that we all come from and live on, and is a beautiful tradition of wherever a baby was born, they would plant the placenta. And it's about giving back to the earth because the earth gives us so much. And you can plant a tree if you want to with the placenta. And the Aboriginal women will tell you Don't plant a lemon tree because you'll get a sour child, or don't plant a rose bush, you'll get a thorny child. And choose a tree that embodies the qualities of what you would like to cultivate in that child. And I love that as a tradition. I think it's
Yeah, it's
great. But I
beautiful.
also warn people, if you've got a dog, dig it deep,
Yeah.
because the last thing you want to do is see a dog walking around with a dirty big umbilical cord hanging out of its mouth saying, "Look what I found." Speaking from experience, I have to admit there.
Yes. And I remember you saying that
Yeah,
story in the class, and we do have a dog, and so
yeah,
I
yeah.
just thought, better
They
better
love
to
them.
avoid him having a tasty snack.
You can also encapsulate them. So look up placental encapsulation, which is a person who dries it out and turns it into a powder and puts it in capsules. Probably the best supplements you'll ever have. I don't think there's a lot of evidence, although I haven't looked it up lately, around the benefits of doing that.
Mm,
But given babies take they're little parasites, they take the very best of your body.
mm,
And if you can replenish yourself with a bit of placenta, that might be a great thing for you. So these are all things you can consider. But yeah, you don't often hear people talk much about the placenta. It was lovely you got the chance to really honour it and
mm.
appreciate what it had done for you and for little Patricia. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Mm. And is there any advice you'd give a pregnant woman?
Maybe, to trust yourself and to communicate with
Mm.
people around you. Like I think that was what really helped me because I was able to have the support of my partner and um yeah, just to communicate how you're feeling. If something feels off, tell
Yeah.
someone and see if there's something that can maybe be done to help.
Mm.
Mm,
Beautiful. Thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin shared some great stuff with us today around mental health and really pulling together the people in your team to support you and be proactive in that space. Because from what I can see, Caitlin, that proactivity, you've actually been really enjoying this period of being a new mum. Is that right? It's really made a difference.
Yeah, it's made a big difference
Mm.
and I think yeah, having a mentally well mother is
Yeah.
incredibly important. And, it's not something that people maybe feel comfortable talking about. But if you
Mm.
can just share, even with your midwife, with your partner, whoever,
Yeah.
um, how you're feeling, then it
Mm.
doesn't always have to be sunshine and daisies. You
Yeah.
can
That's right.
want to be pregnant and then be really sad, or, however you're feeling is valid. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mental health is such an important part of this process. And because there's so many hormonal changes, all sorts of things can happen that throw you off and out of balance. And so getting that right support and being proactive in that, I think, is a beautiful message from Caitlin's story. She had an induction. She was able to manage it beautifully with lots of different tools. She talked a lot about the different tools that she used to help her to find comfort. She also highlighted so very beautifully the importance for her of doing the breathing and the relaxation practice, which helped her to find that inner calm. It helped her to support the process of birth, not only physiologically by being the best physiological version, not a stressed version of yourself, but I suspect that would have also really supported your mental health, her mental health in being able to manage a very intense labour and then the postpartum period as well. So lots of great wisdom shared by lovely Caitlin and Patricia's story. And I hope you've learnt lots and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for listening.